The Honourable Brian Walker.
I do apologise for giving a member statement this late in the evening, but you'll know I've spoken about mental health for doctors in the recent days, and I wanted to extend that and speak about the mental health of other frontline workers, in this case, teachers and those running our schools. Now, I asked a question earlier today specifically aimed at the kindergarten to year 3 cohorts, and I'm grateful to the Minister for her response. I find it most fulsome, but I have to tell her I don't think we're doing enough to support our school staff through this pandemic. In my clinic, I often have to listen to those tales of woe. Teachers in schools are actually crying out for help. And I was approached by a school principal a few days ago, and this will have to remain anecdotal, because, you know, telling tales out of school isn't really approved. And I've got no doubt that other members in this chamber have similar stories as well, but this particular principal had a number of teachers off work as a result of the close contacts picked up in the classroom. Now, it's all well and good for the government to say that there's a bank of 5,000 casual release staff, and that's true, it's true. But in the case of this particular school, they put in more than 280 requests. 280 requests in the space of 24 hours. That's from the department's casual pool and a third-party relief system, and they got not one single response. Imagine the stress of the headmaster or headmistress in this situation. No one can take over the classes. What do you do? The children are going to pile up there, and you've got nothing to fill the day with. Now, I'm reliably informed, I've got no personal experience, but I'm reliably informed by people who have been working in this situation that the schools are booking out relief teachers weeks in advance so they can have them on call should they need them. I've got no personal evidence, but I'm told this. But how many, it must cost a lot of money, and how many of our schools, if this is the case, can afford to spend from their budget just to book the relief teachers in case they run into need? A friend of mine actually is a relief teacher and is working very, very hard, but also one of many, finding that the job is precarious. But if they're being booked out and sitting twiddling their thumbs, waiting for something to happen, that's not the best use of her time either. The word I've had from this friend of mine is that this is worse than 2020. And that's in the metropolitan area. Now, having worked in the country, I can't imagine what it's like there now. Well, I can actually, but it's not very nice. Now, the advice, of course, is to contact the department directly. That's all very well and good, Monday to Friday midday. But Saturday and Sunday, that's a bit difficult, I believe. I had the same experience with medical advice in that lots of advice was given, but come the weekend, you couldn't get anyone there. And the advice, even now, what I'm doing in my clinic is we're taking the advice given by the department and sitting down and saying, right, now what do these people actually mean? How do we make this happen? And I'm sure that's also going to apply to teachers as well. And we also can't play the critical worker card, can we, all the time? That's the last resort. It may be a solution, but as far as the schools I've spoken to, and there's just a few, it seems to be a non-existent solution. So it's possible we're putting teachers and students' health at risk in the coming weeks because we've forced the schools to merge classes or hire non-existent or overbooked relief teachers. And so again, comparing the health bureaucratic responses to the response I'm anticipating from the education department, I'm going to find that teachers and principals will be burning out with the stresses, managing the well-being of their students and finding this balance between the needs of the community and the needs of the school. And the whole thing strikes me as being, well, sweeping it under the carpet perhaps might be a bit stern, but trying to make do this vision we've got here of the duck paddling quite nicely, but under its feet rapidly paddling under the water. I get the impression that is what is happening here. So what's happening also is that the mental health of the school staff and the mental health of the leaders on the ground is suffering, and it's important that we bear this in mind and that we get the schools by all means functioning normally. What is that going to look like in this pandemic? Acknowledging the student welfare as well. Now, in my own personal experience from schools, the one my boys go to, there is an excellent system there of online teaching which could be implemented, but it's not always the case in schools across the country. So I'm sure I'm not the only one here who's got these issues in this chamber, and I'm sure that we're all concerned to help. But I do think we ought to make a noise here that this is actually a problem, and it's a developing problem. So I would urge the government, urge the minister to look again at the provision of relief staff for our schools and to assess the triggers for school closures or for selective classroom closures, if these are perhaps more palatable. We know we've got excellent teachers, we've got wonderful teachers, they're prepared, they're capable, they're providing wonderful online teaching options, and we shouldn't allow that to be interfered with to the detriment of the health of those we rely on to care for our children and indeed for their colleagues. So I'd hope we would acknowledge this, look at the health and well-being of our teachers. It matters to us because our children are the future and we need to care for them. And the reports I am getting is that the anxiety and the stress among the students is actually increasing, and I would anticipate we'll have problems to deal with in the coming years. So we can do better, members. We're doing our best, but we can do better, and I would encourage all to work towards this aim of relieving the stresses on those for whom we depend for the teaching of our students.